Hello dear friends, today is November 13th, 2025, and we are once again returning to a detailed review of the battlefield map. This day has turned out to be especially intense. The flow of news is literally flooding the entire line of contact, from the southern sectors to the northern ones. And what matters is that we are seeing tangible changes. The most serious shifts, as before, are on the Huliaypole axis. There is now more information coming in from the Pokrovsk sector, from the Kostiantynivka area, and from the Kupiansk region as well. We will carefully go through all of this and show it on the map. Let us start with the situation on the Orikhiv axis. Here today, there are seemingly no changes, but from the area of Stepnohursk, we have received very contradictory and alarming reports. Some pro-Russian sources insist that half of Stepnohursk is already under the control of Russian troops, that heavy, literally exhausting fighting is underway in the town, and that Russia has achieved some advances. However, so far, there is no confirmed evidence that would clearly prove this. Therefore, on the map, we keep the situation as it was. Let me remind you that pro-Ukrainian sources maintain that Stepnohursk is fully held by the Ukrainian armed forces. Pro-Russian sources claim the opposite, that half of the settlement is already in Russian hands. And some Russian YouTube bloggers even go so far as to state that the town has completely passed under the control of the Russian armed forces, which of course does not correspond to reality. Therefore, the map remains unchanged, although heavy fighting in the Stepnohursk area is indeed ongoing. Strikes on Ukrainian positions are also being recorded regularly, both by FPV drones and by aviation, especially in the area of Malokaterinivka, Primorske, and Lukyanivske. In Lukyanivske, for example, an airstrike was recorded. There are also Ukrainian retaliatory strikes on Russian positions. The areas of Kamyanske, Stepov, Mali Sherbaki and Sherbaki have come under attack. As of today, there is no noticeable advance here, but the intensity of events remains high. We now move to Mala Tokmachka. Pro-Russian sources report that heavy fighting continues there, but the actual front line has not shifted for about a week, and possibly even longer. Russian forces are still holding on in the central part of the settlement. Ukrainian troops have tried to counterattack, to push the Russians back, but so far they have not succeeded. There is a constant exchange of strikes here, from FPV drones to artillery. The Russian side is also actively engaging Ukrainian positions in the areas of Novodanilivka, Novoandriivka, and the southern outskirts of Orikhiv. However, no advance is being recorded there either, only constant reports of fighting. And against this background, we move on to the most dynamic sector, the Huliaypole axis. The situation on the Huliaypole axis changed sharply after Russian troops managed to capture a fortified area near Uspanivka. It was this strongpoint that had been holding back their advance for many years, because Huliaypole itself is a powerful stronghold that the Russian armed forces could not break through for years. Now, however, Russian forces are bypassing the town from the flanks, aiming to cut key supply roads. The main road leading to Huliaypole is already under Russian fire control thanks to their positions in the settlements of Mern and Zahorn, from where FPV drones are actively operating. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian armed forces still have another supply road, and Ukrainian units continue to use it. But despite this, Russian advances here are noticeable. Over the past 24 hours, the settlements of Ravnopole and Yablokovo have come under Russian control. And just yesterday, Russian forces captured Novospanivske, Novoe and Sladko. Today's data confirm that Ravnopole and Yablokovo are firmly held by Russia, and the fighting has already reached the area of Zatishia. Numerous strikes, mainly by FPV drones and artillery, are being delivered in the area of Dobropilia. As for the settlements of Veselo, Zelenyi High and Vysokoy, heavy fighting is ongoing there. Russian troops are advancing from Malinivka and Poltavka, attacking in several directions at once. It is quite possible that by the time you are watching this report, one of these settlements may already have passed under Russian control. On the map, it is clearly visible. The entire red sector shows the territories that have come under the control of the Russian armed forces over the last day. The advance amounts to several kilometers, and in some places it looks quite significant. Now we shift to the Dnipropetrovsk axis. On the Dnipropetrovsk axis, there is a real barrage of news today. Reports are coming in about Ukrainian counterattacks, primarily in the area of Yehorivka. Although the Russian Ministry of Defense stated that this settlement is already under Russian control, and we even marked it accordingly on the map, the current reality shows that a significant part of Yehorivka still remains with the Ukrainian side. Moreover, Ukrainian forces are attempting to counterattack in the direction of Vishnev, which Russia has so far managed to hold. Privolne also remains under the control of Russian troops. Russian strikes are being recorded on Nechayivka, Danilivka, and the outskirts of Yehorivka, where intense fighting is ongoing. Strikes are also being delivered on Alexandrivka, Tuke, Arestopil, Velikomikhailivka, and north of Novoalexandrivka. The situation likewise remains extremely tense. Today, reports came in about mass strikes by Geran drones. Around 20 strike UAVs hit Ukrainian ammunition depots in the Vasilkivka area, as well as temporary deployment points. All this indicates that Russia is actively ramping up the pressure, and there is a high probability that in the coming days, the situation on this axis will change dramatically. We move further along the map, to the Novopavlivka axis. Judging by the incoming reports, the front here has become active again. According to pro-Russian sources, Russian troops are expanding their zone of control north of Ivanivka. Earlier, it was reported that constant, exhausting fighting was taking place in this area, where the Ukrainian side tried to counterattack but did not achieve success. Now the news once again suggests that the Russian side is pushing the line farther forward. But it is important to remember, similar information was received earlier regarding the settlement of Filia, where they also claimed an expanded Russian control zone. However, weeks passed and no reliable confirmation appeared. For this reason, the map remained unchanged, and it is quite possible that the situation with Ivanivka will follow the same pattern. We are waiting for solid confirmation. In Novopavlivka itself, sabotage and reconnaissance groups are active, as we have mentioned repeatedly. There are also reports that Russian troops are gradually clearing out the so-called pocket between Filia and Orakovo. Yesterday, video footage confirmed that a significant part of the grey zone there had come under Russian control. Now new reports are emerging that Russia's control is even broader than what we currently show on the map. As soon as there is official confirmation, we will update the map. The Russian side is actively striking Belyakovka with FPV drones and artillery. FPV groups are also operating in the direction of Mezhova, a key Ukrainian logistics hub through which supplies were going towards Novopavlivka and Pokrovsk. There are ammunition depots and temporary deployment points of Ukrainian units located there. So for now there is no fresh, fully confirmed change in the front line, but the situation is clearly developing. Everything here may change in the coming days. Next, the Pokrovsk axis. From the Pokrovsk direction today, we are receiving a true torrent of reports. The news flow is enormous, and most of the changes are concentrated around the settlement of Rovna. Some sources insist that Rovna has already passed under Russian control, but reliable confirmation is still lacking. The only genuinely confirmed information has come from a neighboring sector, from the area where forward Russian positions had been located and were then attacked by Ukrainian forces. However, it is important to remember that data from this zone come with a delay of 1 to 2 days. So the real picture on the ground may be noticeably broader than what we can record today. The entire territory marked in red has definitely passed under Russian control, and on this stretch, the advance amounts to roughly 500 meters. Some pro-Russian sources even claim that Russian troops have managed to straighten the front line all the way to the supply road, thereby strengthening control over the entire surrounding area. There is also reported progress on the western and northwestern outskirts. From there, we received video footage from Russian forward positions confirming the clearing of Svoboda Street, along which Russian troops advanced by about 700 meters in a single day. As for the area of Schmidt Street, clearing operations are also ongoing there. Ukrainian forces are trying to withdraw, but this is extremely difficult. They are effectively cut off from supplies and forced to leave on foot, using field roads. However, almost all of these groups are detected and destroyed by FPV drones. There are already videos circulating online that show Ukrainian soldiers trying to leave Pokrovsk but coming under Russian UAV strikes and being killed. There was also a tragic incident. Ukrainian troops in the Huliaypole area were not informed in time that they needed to change their green armbands to blue ones. Because of this mistake, Ukrainian UAV crews mistook them for the enemy and struck them, killing their own men who were trying to withdraw from Mirnohrad. Unfortunately, such episodes do occur. Now we move on to Mirnohrad. On the southern outskirts, there is indeed movement on the Russian side. Yesterday we already spoke about the advance there, and the video obtained confirmed that Russian troops covered about 400 meters in a day. Today new confirmation has arrived, showing that over the past 24 hours, the control zone expanded by another 600 meters. The entire area marked in red has fully come under Russian control. However, given the 1 to 2 day delay in data, the real scale of the advance may be significantly greater. Footage has also come in from another location. Around 25 Ukrainian servicemen surrendered as prisoners. This allows us to draw an important conclusion. The southern part of Mirnohrad is effectively cut off from supplies. Ukrainian forces in this sector are in a critical position. In the coming days, they will be forced either to surrender, abandon their positions, or they will simply be destroyed. The narrow corridor through which they still had an exit is rapidly closing. Russian troops are methodically pushing toward key points, and serious changes here will most likely occur very soon. In the central part of Mirnohrad, Russian forces are actively using FPV drones and artillery against Ukrainian positions in the northern part of the city. At the same time, they are trying to expand their control in the area of Rodinsky. Earlier, video footage from there showed Ukrainian forward positions and a Ukrainian tank, and we marked that area on the map as being under Ukrainian control. But later it turned out that Ukrainian forces did not in fact control this sector, and the entire zone is under Russian control. Moreover, it is possible that it never actually passed under Ukrainian control at all. There is far too much contradictory information here from both the Ukrainian and the Russian side, which is why we update the map for this direction with a significant delay. A similar lack of clarity remains around the settlements of Sukietske, Suvorov, and Nikonorivka. Pro-Ukrainian sources insist that Suvorov and Sukietske are fully controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces, and that Nikonorivka is also passing to them. But pro-Russian sources claim the exact opposite, that Suvorov and Nikonorivka are held by Russian forces, and that their control zone is even expanding there. The situation is extremely contentious, and as long as there is no confirmed data, no changes are made to the map. However, there is fully confirmed information regarding Vladimirovka. This sector has indeed passed under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces. Pro-Russian sources had previously stated that Vladimirovka was held by Russian troops, that counterattacks were being launched from there in the direction of Kharkov, and that Russian units were visible in footage from this area. But the facts show the opposite. The Ukrainian armed forces control Vladimirovka, and Ukrainian troops are confidently counterattacking toward Pankovka and advancing. This sector is already colored on the map in favor of the Ukrainian side, and it is precisely over the last 24 hours that it has fully come under their control. We continue to monitor this direction and will update the map as soon as new confirmed information appears. Now we move to the Kostiantynivka axis. Here we see both news reports and real changes on the ground. Russian troops have managed to clear several buildings and take full control of a particular sector of the fighting. After mine-clearing operations, this territory has been firmly secured behind the Russian armed forces. Intense fighting continues in the areas of Pleshchiyivka and Ivanopilia. According to pro-Russian sources, Russian forces are straightening the front line along the railway that passes through this sector. Footage received from the area indicates that Russian troops have expanded their control zone in the southeastern part of Kostiantynivka by approximately 1 kilometer. Everything marked in red is officially under the control of the Russian armed forces, though the real control zone may be significantly wider. In addition, Russian forces are striking Ukrainian positions inside Kostiantynivka itself. Fighting also continues around Predtekin. Despite statements by the Russian Ministry of Defense that this settlement is supposedly under full Russian control, in reality heavy clashes are still ongoing there, and there is no clear picture yet. Next, we move to the Siversk axis. Here, the news is mainly related to active fighting in the Zvanivka area. Airstrikes are being carried out near Sviato-Pokrovsk. FPV drones and artillery are operating against Ukrainian positions in Siversk itself and in the area of Ponyativka. There have been small confirmed changes along a forest belt. It has, by all indications, completely passed under Russian control. The advance here amounts to about 200 meters. No other changes on this axis have been noted today, although Ukrainian forces continue to strike Russian positions in the areas of Dronivka, Serebryanka, Novoselivka, and Vyimka. We continue with the Krasny-Lyman axis. Here, the situation remains similar to what it was yesterday and the day before. Active fighting is ongoing north of Yampil. Strikes are being delivered on Lyman. Heavy battles are also taking place in the areas of Stavki, Drobyshev, Novoselivka, and Yarova. No advance by either the Russian or the Ukrainian side has been recorded here so far. Ukrainian forces are also using FPV drones against Russian positions in the areas of Kolodezi, Zarekne, and Torske. Now we move to the Kupiansk axis, where there are also changes today. From the Kupiansk-Uzlovoy area, there are reports of extremely fierce fighting. Russian troops are expanding their control zone, advancing from the direction of Kupiansk. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense stated that the entire eastern part of the city had passed under Russian control. On the map, this area is indeed fully colored red. It is under Russian control. Heavy fighting is also underway in the areas of Kucherivka and Petropavlivka. Despite the fact that Ukrainian forces are almost encircled, they continue to hold their positions. The confirmed changes relate to the sector near the Zauskolye station. This area has completely passed under Russian control, and the entire territory has been cleared. However, Ukrainian troops continue to counterattack from the directions of Moskovka and Sobolevka, although they have not managed to achieve any advance. Some pro-Russian sources claim that by the end of the week, this entire settlement may fully pass under Russian control. We will be watching how events develop. If that happens, we will definitely show it and report on it. Ukrainian forces continue to strike Russian positions in the areas of Peshanoy and Stepova, Novoselivka, but no gains have been recorded behind these attacks. Now we move to the Veliky Burluk axis. Here, Russian troops continue to put pressure on the settlement of Dvyurashanske. At the same time, they are carrying out strikes on Ukrainian positions in the areas of Novovasilivka, Kolodyazne, and Novuzhvinivka. And there are confirmed changes. One of the sectors has completely passed under Russian control. The advance here is about 500 meters. Many have asked why this axis is called the Veliky Burluk direction. The reason is simple. The settlement of Veliky Burluk is a key logistics hub for supplying the Ukrainian grouping along this entire section of the front line. If Russian troops reach this node, the Ukrainian armed forces will, in effect, lose a full-fledged supply corridor on several sectors at once, including Vovchansk. Yes, there are field roads running along the Siversky Donets, but the bridges there are destroyed, and it is impossible to ensure proper logistics over them. The main route runs through Veliky Burluk, and Russian forces are deliberately advancing in this direction. We now move on to Vovchansk. There, heavy fighting continues in the areas of Sinelnikova and Vovchansky Khutori. At the time of recording this video, no advance has been registered. The same applies to the Liptsy axis. Ukrainian forces are striking Russian positions in the areas of Hluboke, Lukyantsy, and Zeleny. In response, Russian troops are hitting Ukrainian positions in Neskuchne, Liptsy, Slobozhanska, and Borshcheva. There has been no advance here for many months, and the situation remains steadily tense. That is all the news for today. Thank you all for your attention. See you next time.